So, I wanted to just address something. I made a post about pride. And then in my stories, I addressed an artist. And I don't know his exact name, but he's like a Christian artist. And he had a thing about the pride comes before the fall. And then I put a Kendrick Lamar quote about pride is the devil. And someone messaged me that it seems very judgmental. You know, that's the thing about Christians. It seems judgmental. Like, what do Christians care about being gay? Yeah, I hear you. So the way that I think about that is sin, not that all sins are created equal, but sin is sin and we're all sinners. And the way that I think about sin, if you're not a Christian, all good. But the way I think about sin is the etymology of the word. And the word sin, in case you don't know, is to miss the mark. It means to miss the mark, like miss the bullseye. So you have a bullseye that you're aiming for. That's the ideal. That's the perfect thing. You hit the perfect bullseye. Some of you might have seen my post about hitting a 300 game in bowling. You know, that's the bullseye. And if you miss the bullseye, you didn't hit the ideal, then you sinned. So what does that mean as far as your behavior goes, your morality goes, is you aim for being perfect. You aim for living the perfect life, your behavior being perfect, the way you treat people being perfect. And the chances that you are perfect it's zero. There's no way that you're going to be perfect. You're going to miss the mark. So we're all, in terms of that, just like take the religious context out of it. If that's not your thing, all good, truly. Okay. But for the sake of what I'm trying to explain here is if you're aiming to be perfect and then you miss being perfect, that's a sin. And if you think about what is perfect, if you're married and you lust after someone, okay, you look at pornography or something like that, that's not ideal. It's not ideal that you're married and look at porn. It's not ideal that you're married and you see a pretty girl and you stare at her butt. It's not ideal. Just talking about like sexual stuff. So that's a sin. You know, Jesus talked a lot about divorce. Divorce is a sin. It's missing the mark. Again, people get divorced all the time. I'm not saying that people who get divorced are bad people or they're evil or they're anything like that. What's going on, man? But it's not ideal. And anytime you miss the ideal, then it's a sin. But I understand the critiques people have with judgmental Christians. I don't think that there's a group that I am more critical of than judgmental Christians. I think that's the group that me personally, that I am the most critical of. I'm the most angered by, I'm the most triggered by are judgmental Christians. I hold Christian people to a higher standard. I think that's the idea is Christian people are people who have the ideal. They have a pathway. They have a role model in Jesus, this figure. I believe that he really existed and he is the Son of God. Even if you don't, you know the story of Jesus. Everyone knows the story of Jesus. And the story of Jesus is that he is perfect. So if we have that ideal, it's easier to have a role model than it is to not have a role model. It's like when I give an assignment in class, I'll hold it up and I'll hold up an assignment and I'll say all right, this portfolio last year, this is an A+. This is what you should aim for. You should aim for this. This is an A+. Okay? So we have an A+ in front of us, an ideal that you should live up to. And when Christians don't, that requires humility. It requires humility, and you need to acknowledge that you have a role model, you know how to act because it's right there. That's what the Bible is. It's like, this is the way Jesus behaved. even if you believe it's legend. This is the way. And when you act outside of that, I think that there's that deserves to be acknowledged and even critiqued by other Christians. So I am way harsher against Matt Walsh. I'm way harsher against Matt Walsh or Charlie Kirk or someone like that than I am someone who is not a Christian. Than I am someone like Ibram Kendi, like someone who's like woke. I'm more critical of that person than I am the person who is woke, because I think that one of the problems with I know woke's like a triggering term for people, but like critical social justice, whatever it is, DEI stuff. Those people, the problem with wokeness, there's a lot of problems with it. One of the big problems is there isn't an aim. It's a lot of postmodernist thinking, which is like, you do what you feel, you do you. Postmodernism is like, there is no ideal, there is no objective truth. So for them to miss the mark, it's kind of like, yeah, you're gonna miss the mark because you don't even have an aim. Imagine going to a shooting range, and when you're at the shooting range, you're aiming for like a target, right? Or you're in a bow and arrow. You aim for a target, and you shoot and you miss, like, darn it. But you're aiming for something. And I think that a big problem with like postmodernist culture is people create their own aims anywhere, and there isn't a bullseye. So if you don't have a target, you're gonna miss a target because you don't have one. So I am more forgiving of people that don't have a target than I am the people that do. And the way that I get Christians to round their edges a little bit more is by acknowledging where they are, where they stand, holding shared values with them, me being a Jesus follower myself, and acknowledging what they believe, and then calling them to be softer, kinder, show more grace. That is a Christian ideal. Grace is huge. It's all over the Bible. And I love grace. I love the concept of grace. Grace is such a beautiful concept. Grace is giving the positive treatment that someone doesn't deserve. Would I debate Walsh or Kirk? I would love to. But I don't really like debating. I think I could. It'd be so easy because they're Christians. It's a great question. Because they are Christians, so since they're Christians, I would just throw scripture at them. The debate would be very Christian. It would be scripture. Here's what it says here's how it says you should behave. So, all right, okay, so are you guys interested in this? Can I explain exactly what I would say to Matt Walsh? Do you want to hear? Because no one's ever said it. I don't know if you care. Okay. All right, cool. There's a scene in the Bible. So I'm going to talk Bible because Matt Walsh is like, I'm a Christian, right? Okay. Scene in the Bible where Jesus, after he brings Levi, also known as Matthew, into the fold. He becomes a disciple and a follower of Jesus. So then he's a tax collector. Tax collectors, for like the Jews back then, were the worst. They were the worst because they were traitors to their own people, stealing from their own people to give to their oppressors like Rome. It's like the way that like Candace Owens is seen by some people in the black community. It's like, you're a traitor to us, but it's like way worse. Okay. So Jesus goes and he sits at a table with tax collectors and sinners, prostitutes, like bad people, right? And he sits and dines with them, forms a relationship with them, shows them love, pours love on them. And then the religious leaders show up. And the religious leaders go, why are you a rabbi? Because Jesus was a rabbi. He's a religious figure. Why are you dining with tax collectors and sinners? You should be judging them. And Jesus, the man, Jesus says, it's not the healthy that need a doctor, it's the sick. So, the way that you pull people from their negative ways of living their life is you befriend them, you pour love on them, and then you hold them, you guide them towards a better way of living. That's the Christian way. And it's not the way that a lot of Christians behave. And that's very upsetting because it's so clear. It's in all the Gospels. That is like very clear the way Jesus tells you to behave. And it's really frustrating because Matt Walsh, I've talked about it a lot. Matt Walsh did this whole video where he was talking about Dylan Mulvaney. And he was so angry. He was so angry at Dylan Mulvaney, saying terrible things to Dylan Mulvaney. And in that, he says like the meanest things he can possibly come up with. Matt Walsh says the meanest things you could possibly come up with. Matt Walsh would say he loves trans people, but disagrees with their lifestyle. And we remind you that Jesus instructed everyone to sin no more. Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm getting to that. Thank you, Casual Mystic. Okay, Matt Walsh, what he should have done biblically, the way that you guide people out of sin to sin no more is not to judge them and turn your back to them and ridicule them. When I say judge, we all judge. But like, I mean, turn your back. I mean, insult them. Matt Walsh called Dylan Mulvaney like, what do you call it? Like a fake human? Like a deep fake human? Said you are disgusting? Matt Walsh, in the same breath, said Dylan Mulvaney, you are mentally ill. He believes trans people are mentally ill. There's like a screw loose in their brain, like biologically. There's like something actually wrong with you. And even if you don't think that Dylan Mulvaney is like actually trans, you could say Dylan Mulvaney is a narcissist. You could say Dylan Mulvaney has something going on in her brain. I think goes by her brain. That's maybe off. You could argue that, let's say. Okay. In the same breath, Matt Walsh says, you are mentally ill and you're disgusting. You're a deep fake. You're gross. No one cares about you type of stuff. So he's ridiculing a mentally ill person. That is as far from the way Jesus instructed us to behave as it gets. And what Matt Walsh should have done, so the question I would say in a debate or a conversation with Matt Walsh would be, why don't you invite Dylan Mulvaney over to your house for lunch? That's what Jesus said to do. Invite Dylan Mulvaney over for lunch. Sit down, break bread with Dylan. Cook Dylan some food. Good drink and food. Sit next to them. Put your hand on her hand. Put your hand on her shoulder. Form relationship and then pull them out through love and grace over time. It takes a lot of time. And I would ask, why did you disobey what Jesus clearly instructed you on how to behave? And I don't know what his answer to that is. I don't know. But I think that's a real issue, and that's why I'm so critical of these people. I don't know how many transgender people or woke people, how many woke people does Charlie Kirk invite over to his home, gives his address, invites them into his home, Ibram Kendi, some woke person, and sits down with them, looks them in the eyes, gives them true like respect and acknowledgement of their essence as a human being, gets to know them as a person, and then over time guides them through modeling behavior, how perhaps living a different way could serve you better. That's the way a Christian is supposed to behave, and that's not the way they behave. Okay? That's a real issue. Do you know Matt Walsh? This is a funny one. Matt Walsh was trying to argue for the sanctity of life. Matt Walsh said sanctity of life. He's like, life is so important. Human life is really important, more important than animal lives. And people said like, well, what about like an ape or something? And Matt Walsh's quote was something along the lines of, I would kill 100 apes, 100 monkeys, 100 gorillas to save one human life. Okay. And I saw someone, what someone said was, all right, Matt Walsh, and I apologize, this is a little like profane, but he said, and it was like a tweet, said, Matt Walsh, would you give oral sex to 10 men to save one human life? And Matt Walsh blocked him and didn't address the question. That's interesting. Like a hypothetical in that kind of situation. Because performing oral sex on a man, if you're a heterosexual person, is not going to kill you. It's not going to permanently damage you or anything like that. It's a sin. But you know what? So is ridiculing people. That's not the ideal either. And I think that it's so easy to use these platitudes. I think there's a lot of holes in ideologues, whether they're left or right. There's so many holes in ideology, because an ideology is like a pixelated map of what the world is and how to make sense of the world, because the world's complicated. I haven't figured out. Have you figured out the world? Have you figured out reality or consciousness yet? like we haven't figured that out, right? So, an ideology gives you like a map for what the world is, and how to live in it. But it's pixelated. It's a map. It's not exactly what reality is. There's not enough nuance. There's not enough complexity. And so it leads you to having blind spots. And this is left and right. And that is precisely what I'm going over in my masterclass. Okay, I would love if you have middle school or high school kids. The stuff that I'm explaining here does not get explained in school, partially because teachers don't want to touch this. It's like a third rail issue. Okay. Also, I don't think it gets explained very well at home. I think a lot of times people at home have pixelated maps. They have ideologies, or they have, left wing, right wing stuff pushed on them at home. And if you follow this account, if you're listening to this, like, you understand complexity, you understand the importance of critical thinking. And my masterclass next Saturday, which I'm stoked for, is going to be a breakdown of how you can explain this to young people. I'm not trying to push people right or push people left. I'm trying to get people to understand that the world is complicated. And when you understand the complicated elements of the world, you are very hard to brainwash. You're very hard for someone to say, you should go do this. Because you're like, but I see all the complexity over there. If you're wearing like really dark sunglasses at night, okay? And someone says, go sit in that chair. You go like, all right, yeah, I'll just go sit in that chair. And you sit in the chair and there's broken glass. Well, why did you fall into that broken glass? This is like being brainwashed into like a bad ideology. This could be pro-gay or anti-gay. And if you subscribe to your ideology, you're more likely to sit on the broken glass. But if you are a critical thinker, if you are someone who understands the complexity of the world, then you take those dark sunglasses off and someone goes, go sit in that chair. You're like, no, I see sparkles. I see broken glass over there. I'm not going to do that. Well, or why do you want me to sit on broken glass? Or is that broken glass? What are those sparkles over there? You start asking questions that they have to answer. And if they're trying to get you to sit on broken glass and hurt you, then they won't be able to do it as easily. Or they'll have to answer what those things are. You're going to go over it with a lot more caution. You're less likely to sit on broken glass. You're less likely to get brainwashed. So I'm going to give you a lot of tips on how to understand this stuff, so you're just less likely to fall into these traps. And I think that's very, very important. I really do. So much so that I walked away from my very comfortable job, where I walked in and there's a whole room full of students that loved me, and their parents loved me, and the administration loved me. They did not want me to leave. They tried to keep me. They did not want me to leave. But I see this as that important. I know there's some people in here who are really critical of me and don't like what I'm doing. But you want me on your side, guys. because I can speak to the people who actually don't like you. Like I've been called like a racist and a homophobe a lot, a Nazi and woke and all. I've been called everything. But like, especially like when I get called like right-wing stuff, I'm not racist. But there are racists. There are people who are racists, like really, who don't like you because of your skin color, who think that you're less than. There are people who don't like you because you're gay. They think that you're a bad person. They think that you're dangerous for society. That's not me. So be careful when you call me or, call someone, not even about me, like if you call someone a racist, because it's going to muddy the waters for who the racists actually are. If everyone's a Nazi, then where are the real Nazis? I had Daryl Davis on my podcast twice, and he got 300 people to break from the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi groups by befriending them. He found out that they're in the Ku Klux Klan, and instead of walking away like all of us would, instead of doing that, he befriended them. And over the course of a year, he went to Klan rallies. That's how you get people out. I quit teaching. Yeah, well, I didn't quit teaching. Hold on. Not going to lie, man. You're one of my inspirations. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. I didn't quit teaching. I can't. That's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It's one of the only things I'm really good at. And I didn't quit. I was teaching for the past 17 years. I taught anywhere between, 80 and 120 kids, maybe 150 kids a year. 80 and 150 kids a year. With Patterdocs, I can teach 1,000. With personal relationships, with critical thinking, with the same lessons. That's the way I structured it. It's not like just a regular school on Zoom like we did during COVID. That's not what it is. I didn't quit teaching. I'm teaching for myself now. If someone is a computer programmer at Google and they start their own business to program computers, they didn't quit computer programming. They're not quitting programming. We just think teaching is so different. We think teaching kids, you have to be in an institution like that. And I don't understand why. Why? Do you know what's another thing? Last thing, and then I want to go play with my kids. But last thing is like, people are now being critical of me because I charge. Oh no, all good, Sean. All good. No, I'm not. People are critical of me because I charge for Patterdocs. I left my job. I have 3 kids. I left my job to build my own thing. And they're like, oh, you're just trying to make a buck. First of all, I've been doing this Instagram for 6 years. I have never asked you for $1, ever. I do have a Patreon that I made specifically because many people, I'm talking about like 24 people said, hey, do you have a Patterdocs? Or, sorry, they said, do you have a Patreon? And I was like, no. They're like, oh, well, I would love to support what you're doing. So I made one, and I just made like a donation of $5. Other than that, I've never pushed a product on you. I've never asked for money. I've devoted hours, hundreds, maybe probably thousands of hours to this, to educate, to bring open-mindedness and critical thinking and stuff like that. Try and find unity between left and right. Be critical of the negatives on the left and the negatives of the right. For nothing. Time away from my kids. Time away from my family. Time away from my hobbies. So I built something and I need to make a living. And yes, I do have a podcast called Cylinder Radio, but I'm updating it to Brainwash Proof Your Kids is going to be my new podcast. But it's so interesting. It's really interesting how people are critical of me for charging to teach people. Like, how many times have you heard people say, teachers should get paid more? Teachers should get paid more. We should pay teachers like athletes and actors. How? How do we pay teachers like athletes and actors? Just like government? Through taxes? People who don't even get the service of that teacher are supposed to pay for massive increases in pay? No, that's not the way it works. How does it work for athletes and actors? People want to see them. People pay for that athlete. People pay for that actor. So I take that seriously. I was like, yeah, teachers should get paid more. Not even about me, but great teachers out there should get paid well. Great teachers should get paid well. And the only way I could think to do that is to make some sort of personal brand and take it into the free market. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing it to get rich. Look, if I get rich doing it, that means that I'm having a crazy, awesome impact and people are really, really happy with what I'm doing. It's like, it's a really weird thing. Like, why do you say teachers should get paid more and then a teacher works their butt off for 2 years to build a platform that can blaze a pathway for teachers around the country to get paid more, because no one's ever done what I'm done. Literally, no one has ever done what I'm doing, what I've created. Teachers should get paid more, and then a teacher creates something where it's actually possible, and then they're critical of it. Like people on the left, mostly, because more right-wing people tend to be more like free market people. It's so interesting. You have no problem with a musician who plays in like a corporate gig, like job, like works at like a restaurant or something like that, getting paid. But then they want to go out and they want to just like go to someone's party individually and play, and they'll charge you money. No one has a problem with that. Why teachers? It's very interesting. Something I'm gonna have to keep addressing. But I appreciate you guys. If you don't have kids or you don't have interest in like brainwash proofing your kids or looking into my platform or anything like that, word of mouth. Word of mouth. I will need that to be able to replace my income. And last year, I was building this past year, I was building it while I was working, and I just couldn't do it. I was stretched too thin. It was just too much, and I don't want to take too much time. My kids they're awesome. They're 9, 7, and 2, and they're growing up so fast, and I don't want to miss it. And this is a way I can stay at home, teach, serve, and still be with my family. And it took me a lot, guys. This is many, many hours in the making over many years, and it's here now, and I am stoked. And I want to fill this class. I want to fill it. So, yeah, if your kid's only 5, not yet, but it'll be here for them. So share it. The link is just patterdocs.com/masterclass. You can DM me anytime. If it's not for you, like that's the cool thing about the free market. If it's not for you, don't sign up. I don't want anyone there that doesn't want to be there. I don't want to sell someone a product that doesn't want to buy the product. That's not the way school works. Like public school, you got to go no matter what. And it's a supplementary thing. So you still can go to public school. You can still go to private school. You can still go to home school. You can still do whatever you want. Okay. But it's a way to bring critical thinking through social science to the masses. I'm really stoked. The link is, I don't know if it's in my bio right now. It's just patterdocs.com. If you go to patterdocs.com, it will be, or you can say, I'll send it to you, Sean. I'll send it to you. But I'm going to go swimming with my kids. I appreciate you guys. This community is so cool. It's so cool. I appreciate you. And I'm going to lean on you a little bit to help me out with this endeavor. If you believe in if you like this, if you believe in what I'm saying, then pass it on to people. Pass it on. Okay. Would I be okay starting a movement to get Matt Walsh to talk to me? Yeah, he won't. I'm his worst nightmare. I'm Matt Walsh's worst nightmare. And he has a big following and stuff like that, so it might be just a bandwidth thing to try and get on his radar. But I'm his worst nightmare because he likes going after the woke. He doesn't like arguing with people who can quote scripture. And I think he'd be honestly, I think he'd be scared of that. But I'm not on his radar. But yeah, you know what? Go start the movement. Let's go. What better way to show critical thinking than to shut up a guy like that is incredibly arrogant and trying to brainwash you. Matt Walsh is trying to brainwash you. So, anyway. Appreciate you guys. Love you. Take care. How do I end this? All right. Take care, guys.